My name is Aven Cook. I've been teaching in JCPS for 4 years. This is my 4th year in this building. I've had the fortune of working at Butler Traditional since I was still a student teacher. This year I have 9th grade, which is the first time I've had 9th grade in 2 years, but I do have one section of African American literature, which pairs up with our African American history course, and I absolutely love it. We spend a lot of time reading and writing, and getting to read their writing is probably one of my favorite parts. One of the things that I love most is the history. So even though I'm not the African American history teacher, I still get to play with the history of it, and we still get into how did we get to this point and what influenced these writers to say what they're saying, or these poets to say what they're saying. And it's just very interesting how everything pulls together and we end up where we are today. Typically in African American Lit, we come into a writing prompt or a reading prompt, and they have reader-writer notebooks that they respond within. The last time we had a reading prompt, we were looking at Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. And we used just an excerpt of it because we were looking at language and the richness of the language and looking at that oral tradition, and I had them pick apart what they had heard before. So where have you heard these words before? Because looking at it on paper, a lot of people immediately think there's no grammar there, when we know that isn't true. African American vernacular English has a grammar. It's inherent in its structure. So we did a reading response about the excerpt, and then we segued into a TED Talk that is looking at 3 ways to speak English. My kids have a lot of different things going on in their lives, even my freshmen. And I have very few kids who make it through my class or come to me who haven't had some sort of trauma. So I keep books, and I put books in front of them that I feel like they can relate to, even if that relation is kind of painful. But they also know from day one that I will require them to be respectful of each other, even when they don't agree. We do a lot of reading, we do a lot of writing, and it brings out those opinions. And sometimes it can bring out inherent biases, which I work to break down. But at the same time, the kids know that when we're having discussions, your opinion is your opinion. You are entitled to it. It's based on your lived experience. And because I set those expectations so early, I don't hit a ton of resistance with them. I think it also helps, though, that I'm very transparent with my values. They see my laptop on my desk all the time. They know my affiliations. They know what I believe in. But it's also inherent in our classroom rules and in our classroom expectations that they will be respectful of one another. And we talk through what that respect looks like as we get into the school year and we are practicing different things. How do we be respectful when we're working in groups? How do you be respectful when you're giving peer feedback? How do you speak to one another when you do have that freedom of talking while you're working? And a lot of times it's a matter of learned behavior. So the more we ingrain that in them, that you can disagree and it can be polite, and you can disagree about things that really matter to you. But you could also potentially convince someone to think differently, and that's a beautiful moment when it occurs. So the huge thing that I try to do is be cognizant of the traumas that my kids have gone through, and be cognizant that each kid is going to experience my classroom differently.